So we know namaste means the light in me greets and sees the light in you. I often think about the beauty of the practice of others practicing with us, taking the time in life to have mindfulness. So I want to just take a moment to see each one of you here. And I want you to know you are seen. You are seen. You are supported. You are loved. And there is such gratitude for your practice that led you to unity, and that leads you together to the village, to creating a village, the sanctuary that you create together in mind, and that you invested in being here this weekend together. It's massive. Namaste. Life sometimes gets messy, doesn't it? It feels messy on the outside. It can feel messy on the inside. Sometimes it feels like we're facing things that are unsolvable or unresolvable. And so when we have times like that, when we have feelings like that, we can do a few things, apply a few practical tools to remember. One of my favorite tools is to remember that we live in a microcosm and a macrocosm. If I am going through something, if I am going through some sort of transformation, I am not alone. If you open your heart and we open our hearts to each other, we often learn that what we're going through on the inside and what we see on the outside, they're resonating with each other. We're walking this path of conscious evolution together. Sometimes we don't experience ourselves vulnerable enough to be able to reach out to share where we are and what we're going through, to share the things that hold us back, the things that bring us fear. But when we do, we often find that there are others walking the hero's journey with us. That in fact, what's happening in the external realm, if we look at it from a higher vantage point, if we look at it from a different perspective, we can see that there is something happening, and it often can feel like a destruction or an unraveling. It can feel like things aren't going well. It can feel like something is falling apart. But often, when we're on the precipice of thinking everything's falling apart, something greater is coming together. And if we could just use the breath, if we could just stay present, if we could just remember our oneness and our unity of spirit, that when I am moving through something, when we are moving through something, there is movement and there is a birthing happening, then we bring in the fullness of spirit to help us carry us through. We all know the story about the butterfly, and the butterfly, when it's in that stage, I mean, it's just a little lump of gunk. You know, it was a caterpillar, and then it just wrapped itself up, and it's just a bunch of like smudge, sludge, ugh, right? Nothing to look at, nothing to see, no purpose, nothing to do. It's in the darkness. It's just a bunch of goo wrapped together. But in that goo, in that darkness, in that deconstruction, there is an infinite possibility birthing. There are imaginal cells that have everything within them. I mean, really think about that, and think about that not in terms of just a butterfly and the story of a butterfly that we all know and we've heard a million times, but think about it in the story of our lives, in the story of my life, your life, in the story of the collective consciousness, the collective society, the collective how we live on the planet, right? Does anyone else want to throw some of how we live on the planet into the goo mess? Right? Like, let it be. Let it unravel. Some of it, let it unravel. Because there is a birthing waiting to happen. There is a butterfly ready to emerge. But it has within it all that substance, right? Charles Fillmore said that life is made of life, intelligence, substance. That's God in expression. Life, intelligence, and substance. And in that mess, there is life. There's all the activities of life. There is intelligence. There is a divine design. And there is substance. That's the matter that it takes to birth the next. And that's all that is needed. I mean, if you really think about it, it's like, how could that happen? You couldn't make that happen with your hands, with your eyes, with your imagination. And if no one told us it was going to happen, when we look at that lump of goo, we'd say, forget it. It's never going to happen. That's never going to emerge as a new birth, as a butterfly. It would just look depressing. It would just look disappointing. It would just look like lack or like a mess. But the truth is, there is life, intelligence, and substance there. And that is the spirit of truth within each one of us. That is the truth that underlies all things. That is the truth of our living universe in which we live, move, and have our being, and we can call upon. But we're called upon to remember that's the step of faith, the perceiving power of mind, linked with the ability to shape substance, to hold on in times like those, to remember that there is a birthing happening. And sometimes when we can't see it, those are the best times, because those are the times we say, I need to lean on you. I need to lean on source. I need to lean on more. I need to bring in more than my separate sense of awareness can tap into. Where two or more are gathered, there am I in the midst. We know that practice even just by coming together as a village. Coming together to say, I don't have all of the answers. I don't have all of the skill sets. I don't have all of the everything that I need in each moment to do what I need to do. I can lean in. And when we lean in, we level up. Life takes a village. Why? Because we are one. That's the truth. We share the one breath, the one life. So can we remember in every moment, in each moment, can we remember that we are being sourced by more than our eyes see? That there is a divine blueprint for each one of us for our lives, a blueprint that we can give breath and life to, that in fact within our lives and among us there is life, intelligence, and substance. And use the creative faculties of the mind. Use the power of imagination to bring in what's next. Because if we keep bringing in from what we already see, we redo what we have already done, and we go nowhere, yeah? But the tapping into the power of the imagination helps us lean beyond this moment. It leans beyond our own awareness. When we don't see a way, we dig deeper. When we can't find our path, when we can't solve something, we have to go beyond. We have to go to each other. We have to go beyond the moment. Go beyond the individual, separate sense of a limited mind into the divine mind. And that's where we begin to birth. That's where we begin to expand our awareness and to create. Martin Luther King had to use the power of his mind to imagine. He had to birth some things that were not evident around by going within first, to truly know divine worth. The divine worth not only of individuals, but of the collective. I mean, the teachings that the hater and the hated are both in pain and both in suffering and both in lack. The knowing of true oneness and seeing how can this true principle of God as one express through our world, through what I am seeing, through what I am experiencing, through this path, and what's mine to do about it. But he had to use the power of imagination. Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, in starting Unity, came up with the 12 powers, not just out of thin air, but out of looking at world religions, out of looking at the chakras, out of looking at ancient traditions, out of looking at breath work, looking at all parts of the being, to say there are divine faculties that we can engage in, and when we engage in them, we dig deeper. We don't just keep rearranging things, but we dig deeper and we go back into the source of our being to create. When we do that, unlimited resources are available. Inexhaustible ideas come to fruition. Infinite resources are at our fingertips. When Albert Einstein was 16, he had a question that changed everything. He wondered to himself, what would it feel like to ride alongside a beam of light? He pictured himself racing through space, keeping pace with that beam, not chasing it, but moving with it. He wondered, would it be still beside me or would I move with it? He mused on that vision for years. That single imaginative moment became a seed that he sat with, and that seed blossomed into the theory of relativity. The idea that time and space were not fixed, but flexible, interconnected, responsive to movement and perspective. He imagined himself holding on to the beam, riding across the universe at the speed of light. Would it look frozen? Would it keep moving? Would time itself stop? What would happen to space and motion and energy? He asked himself these imaginative questions. What would it feel like to ride that light? It stayed with him for 10 years without an answer, without a solution, but it came an idea that he would roll around, and he kept thinking, dreaming, musing, turning it over in his mind until it unfolded and emerged as the theory of relativity. That was one of the most revolutionary ideas in human history. He didn't create it by logic alone. He didn't create it by just going to his human mind and rearranging resources and patterns and things that had already been invented. He found it through the imagination. He found it through curiosity. And he found it through courage. Courage to see from a higher vantage point. Imagination, the ability to dive into the deep well of God's substance and pull forth something that has not been created before. And curiosity, the ability to sit with something, to sit with a seeming limitation, to sit with the imaginal selves, to sit with something uncomfortable, to sit with chaos, to sit with what comes to us, to sit with the world as we know it. He entered the mystery, and we can each enter the mystery. And when we enter the mystery, the universe answers. That's what we're called to do right now. We're called to look at the complexity in our world, to not shy away from it, but to take a deep breath and allow the breath to bring us into compassion, to bring us into curiosity, and to activate within us imagination. So that we can look at the division that we see, we can look at the social pain, we can look at the environmental strain, we can look at the things, the mental health, all of the issues that are around us and within us today, and not call them wrong, not say we're broken, but yes, maybe we're broken down, but broken down so we can break open into what's next, into what really honors human nature and our divine source, what we are, our divine inheritance, our wholeness as spiritual beings living in a human experience. That's what we're called to do right now. Use the same creative consciousness that revealed relativity and recognize that it's available to each one of us in our spiritual practice so that we can ride that beam of light, to align with divine intelligence, to let higher frequencies reveal themselves and solutions reveal themselves beyond polarity, beyond despair, to move with the light, not against it, and to allow ourselves to see new possibilities and to allow them to unfold that our current systems have not imagined. The human condition, though, sometimes tells us we have to hunt, we have to strive, we have to pull things together. We have to be enough, just as we are, our own little islands. How has that worked for us? How has that worked for us across cultures, across world religions? How has it worked for world religions to judge each other? How has it worked for nations to divide, for individuals to separate? Eric Butterworth, one of Unity's greatest teachers and greatest ministers of the days of old, said this: right where you are in your present level of development, there is a limitless resource of wisdom and guidance, of ability and creativity, of substance and supply, through which you can do and do superlatively well all that needs to be done. If you can let go of limited self-identifications, if you can believe. The word develop, he says, is interesting, that it does not mean adding to or putting on something. It's related to the word envelop, which means to enclose. Thus, develop means to unfold. So as we develop consciousness, we unfold consciousness. And he says that's not done by what he calls programming of the mind, and programming the mind with what he says is an array of pat statements of truth. Is that a little surprising in Unity? He says it's not developed by just putting these on. He says you are rich not because you decree it over and over, but by reason of your spiritual inheritance. Because you already are it. We already are it. He says you are now as spiritual as you can ever be. We are now as spiritual as we can ever be. I invite you to put your hand on your heart. I am now as spiritual as I can ever be. And for the universe, we are now as spiritual as we can ever be. It has already been given. You may increase your awareness, he said, of your true nature. That's what we do. We increase the awareness of the true nature. He says there may be times when you say to yourself, but this problem is really beyond solution. Anyone been there? But this problem is really beyond solution. After all, I'm only human. What do they expect? But you are not only human. You are human, of course, but the human of you is a shell that encloses the divine of you. You can make your own personal breakthrough, and we, I add, can make our collective breakthrough, which in Unity is kind of the teaching of the second coming of the Christ, is the Christ consciousness, the anointed consciousness, the awakened consciousness, coming to enough of us, coming to so many of us that we are no longer willing to divide and polarize and otherize and discard, that we include, we inform, we love, we have compassion. You can make your own personal breakthrough and release tremendous possibility of your own divinity. This is the progressive unfoldment that you will experience as you diligently practice identifying yourself as a limitless expression of an unlimited universe. I am an unlimited expression in a seeming limited universe. That's the human form is the limited. But can we hold to who and whose we are? Einstein didn't chase these answers. He didn't figure out these answers. He imagined them first. He imagined first. He entered the mystery. He became curious enough to see from the unlimited, the God's eye view, the unlimited perspective, and that's our cue spiritually. Louise Hay, who taught us so much about affirmations, she taught us about putting on those affirmations, right? But that's one of the old school teachings, like that you put on the affirmations, but sometimes we think in our limited consciousness, whether it's the world or whether it's in our own selves, we think we're putting on something we don't already have. That's the key to affirmations, and that's the key to denials. We're not putting on something that we don't actually contain. We're putting on something to retrain the mind to recognize what is already there. And that's what Louise Hay did with people, sat with them, affirmed for the body that it was whole and holy, that it has a divine blueprint. And she leaves us with these words. So I share this for the human condition to just wrap us in a field of grace and a field of love, and to remember who and whose we are, and to remember the infinite intelligence available to us as individuals and to us as a collective. She says, don't chase, don't force, don't worry yourself into knots. Just breathe, just relax. When you soften, life finds you. When you stop running, what you desire begins to walk toward you. Make your wants want you. Be grateful for what already fills your hands. That's how you invite more blessings to arrive. Love yourself first. The way the sun loves the morning, and the world will learn to love you in return. Each day, offer the best of who you are, and the universe will echo it back to you through the hearts around you. So stop chasing, stop fearing, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and let everything good find its way home to you. Let everything good find its way home to us. Namaste.